All right. So I don't know if anyone will be listening to this, watching this, but let's talk a little bit about you know this podcast and how we got to this. And I just want to introduce Achi Adamit, who uh, was so gracious. I put up a call like, does anyone want to help me set up a podcast? And people just see my face and the guest face, but like you, Gabe, Ben, Cheyenne, and Abby Sophia, are the power behind this. You make the magic happen. So yeah, let's just talk.
Yeah, but I'll tell you that you could always go to somebody else. There's no other Shai. You know what I'm saying?
You know what?
You are the driver of this,
but
and that's
that's
really,
so
really
not
important.
true. That's the whole point that I'm trying to tell people that like you actually have a skill. And like maybe not you, but the people, who to hire.
Right.
You hire, like Gabe and Ben, the editing, and Cheyenne running everything, and that's more difficult to replace. And I know it's someone who hire people, it's more difficult to replace. Where I literally, and I tell this to everyone, if you just look at what I have done, was stand up and speak loud. That's it. Everyone can do that. No, not everyone can do it like I did it, but everyone can do that. And I really think that if I hadn't spoken up, you'd wait 2 days, 3 days, someone else would have stepped up. So yeah, I don't know.
Where would you have? I'm just curious. If October 7th didn't happen, where would you have been now? Where do you think you would have been in 10 years from now? Just boring Shai Davidai life. I'm sure you had an interesting life. I mean, you went to concerts 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah. So
I don't know how you did that.
So here's the thing. On July 8th, 2023, I turned 40. So, a few months before October 7th, I turned 40. And
I thought you were 30. But okay.
Yeah, people think I'm 41 now, right? And I was at the end of a full year of what I can't explain other than a midlife crisis, like an existential crisis. I was sitting at home thinking, like, is this, like, I have a great family, I have a great wife, I have a great kids, I have a great job, I was doing well at my job, like, but I kept thinking, like, is this it? And I was coming to terms with that. And I assume, like, I would have done just more of the same. I would have just started enjoying my kids more. I would just, putting a break on. I was working nonstop. I was on the path to have tenure, if not at Columbia, and somewhere else. And I love doing research. I love teaching. I love being a professor, and that was it. But sometimes life takes you. Sometimes life takes you to places that, if you told me a year ago that I'd be recording the second season of our podcast, I'd be like, podcast about what? It was like Jewish civil rights. It was like, what do you mean? Why me? I think the point is, like, sometimes life happens and you just gotta ride that wave and see where it takes you. And unfortunately, sometimes it takes you crashing onto the beach, but then other times it's great.
What are some of, like, the breaking points you've had? I mean, I just remember this one. Yeah, I mean, who's this guy that directed this movie called Coney 20? I always think about this guy. He directed Coney 2012. It was like a YouTube sensation.
Okay.
In 2012, it was about slavery in Africa, like child slavery in Africa, and he couldn't deal with all the fame, and he, like, went crazy and started running around naked, whatever. But
not me.
Not you. How do you stay? What do you do to stay? Like,
so no. I've had a lot of breaking points. It's not because I. So first of all, I'm not famous, and I don't like the word famous. I don't like the word celebrity. I am highly recognized. I am known only within the Jewish community. Also, it's important to say, if I want to be incognito, I just go to a non-Jewish neighborhood. No one knows who I am, right? if I walk around a Jewish neighborhood, I enter a Jewish deli, and all of a sudden people recognize me. But my breaking points have not been because of that. It is difficult when I go to protests and rallies, and people come up to me, and I love meeting people. I love talking with people. I love hugging people that need a hug, and sometimes getting a hug when I need it. And I never say no because it's important, because I'm not one of those quote unquote celebrities that like, I'm just a regular person who's also very known right now. It is exhausting. I won't lie. Like sometimes I go home and I was like, I can't even speak with Yarden, my wife, because I just spent like 2 hours speaking with 200 people, one-on-one. But I'm always grateful for it. So, like, imagine someone tells you, like, you can be the person that someone who is crying before they see you and then not crying after they see you. I was like, who would not take on that role, no matter how difficult or painful it is? The breaking points have been different. They are mostly related to relationships that I've lost, that have really kind of either been broken or are not as good as they were because people don't get it, because people criticize either what I'm doing or how I'm doing it. And when Colombia reaches another low, when another really idiotic thing happens on campus, really hateful thing happens on campus, and instead of doing something, the administration does nothing. Those nights I go home and I'm like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And actually, I didn't tell you this, but 2 days ago was that kind of day. I woke up in the morning and I was like, that's it, I'm out. And
the day before second season,
the day before we started recording the second season, and Yarden was sitting at a coffee shop, so I went to the coffee shop on my way to the office, and I told her, listen, I'm out. I don't think I can do this anymore. And she said, no, wait, give yourself some time. And I said, no, I can't. I've paid too big of a price. And I promised myself, like, I am out. And I even like posted something on social media about like how lonely speaking up can be. But then like that post went viral, and so hundreds of people, if not thousands of people, like commented and wrote to me and like expressed their love. And I was like, like, just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in, but it's like, it really is the case where people think I give them strength, but actually I get strength from them, and so I'm back in, but
I imagine just seeing you talk to people and forming these relationships with people that I thought you were friends with when you guys had like your, like preliminary call or whatever, kind of like with Elon Gold, you know, and I said, oh, you guys know each other a long time? He's like, no. He said, no, I don't know. That was the first time like I really started talking. Yeah. So you probably have gained so many friendships versus the losses that you had, I would imagine.
Yeah. I've gained so many incredible friendships. I consider you and Abby now friends, and I consider, a lot of people that not just activists or influencers or whatever it is, just like good people, and I'm so grateful for it. But still, like, when you lose a friend, when you lose someone that you thought was one thing and you find out they're not what they were, it hurts. It pains me, right? It's not, when people watch my videos, sometimes I come off as very abrasive. I shout when I feel like shouting. I curse. Sometimes like they see my tattoos and I feel like, oh, this guy's an angry blah 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 person. I'm actually a quite sensitive dude, and I think that's something that people don't realize. And And the things that I hurt the most about is just social relationships. So
Yeah, I mean, I could tell you're a good balance of like soft when you need to, but hard when you need to. I'm just curious if your personality, first of all, does any of this surprise you about yourself? In other words, does this belie who you are as your personality internally, like your intrinsic personality? You know, did you ever, like 20 years ago, would you have looked ahead and said, I'm going to be some sort of like
no,
at the front, like yelling?
no,
like
not 20 years ago, not 20 days ago, not October 6th, nothing. Like it nothing that I've been doing, everything shocks me that like, I was in Congress, like what the hell, like, and I even told them like, you guys know I'm not even a citizen. I was like, no, we just want to hear you speak, right? The other day talking with Mayim Bialik when we had Deborah Messing, I was like, wait, what? I used to grow up watching Blossom and Will and Grace, and then I'm talking with them. I've met politicians. I've met members of cabinet, and I've met. And everything is shocking, and I'm so grateful, and like I'm never take any of this for granted. At the same time, like I'm just being myself, and I think the nice thing about all of this is that I'm able to be all different types of myself, right? Because I used to be like goofy at home with my children and with my friends. I used to be like professorial at work, like teaching and, taking a lot of material and crystallizing it and being the more calm, and the conversations with students. And I used to be punk as fuck in like punk concerts, right? And that's where I would get like my energy out and like, mosh pit somewhere in like deep Brooklyn and like get the shit bit out of me, and I have like all these different things. And now the only difference is I still do all those things, but they're all in the same world. So like when I need to like be punk and call someone a coward without caring what they'll say, I'll do that. When I need or want to be professorial and just like take something big, like what is anti-Semitism? How does it portray itself? Like, let's think about the history. Let's do more a more critical perspective. I do that as a professor. And when I need to be more silly and goofy or maybe emotional, and I'm able to do that, and it's all in these three things. The irony is that when people only know me from one thing, they only know me from like a shouting video, and when they meet me and you're like, you're not that scary. And I was like, I've never been scary, like, so, yeah.
So, let me understand this.
You have a great voice for a podcast. We're gonna have
Thank
Shai
you so
and
much. Yeah. You grew up in Israel most of your life, right? When did you come here?
Yeah,
when you were like 20s?
So here's my life in a nutshell. I was born in Israel in Herzliya. When I was 6 months old, my parents moved with me, obviously, and my sister to the United States. So I lived in Colorado Springs for a year.
I didn't know that.
As a baby, so I don't remember any of it, but there's like cute pictures of me in upstate New York. Went back to Israel. Then lived in Israel till I was 9. Then because of my parents' work, my dad's work, lived 2 years in Romania. Went to an American school, so that's where I learned English for the first time. Went back to Israel, finished high school, middle school, high school, served in the Israeli Navy, studied in the Hebrew University, and then moved here to Cornell, where I got my PhD in 2010. So I've been here 14 years. And my kids were born here. My wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, moved with me, and now we're married.
No, I was wondering why your English is even better than mine. And probably because you're a really smart guy. But I was asking because, I've lived in like different places growing up as a kid, and I used to always feel like there was I always felt different. I wore a yarmulke, but in Israel, I wonder if people do people in Israel feel anti-Semitism as we do in the diaspora? Probably not, right? But I was going to ask you if you had if that affected you in any way until you got thrown into it, like by,
Yeah. So in Israel, I've never felt anti-Semitism in Israel. We know it exists outside of Israel, but in Israel, like, it's when we know we're hated. It's not like we don't know we're hated, but
it's like a global.
But when we're
Yeah.
hated in Israel, we're hated because of something else. It's this jihadi terrorist mentality of Hamas and the PFLP and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and Hezbollah from the north, and Iran from, and Houthis and everything. So that's different. It's not the anti-Semitism that we experience when we leave, the borders. When I was a kid in Romania, we knew there's anti-Semitism, but I was a kid. I didn't really experience. I distinctly remember being in fourth grade, sitting in, having a play date at my friend's Uri Dotan. I haven't thought about that name in 30-something years. And his mom reading out loud some newspaper article that happened in Germany where a Jewish woman was attacked by neo-Nazis and they carved a swastika onto her cheek. I was 9 or 10 years old when that happened, and I still remember that story because it really left a huge, a huge imprint on me, even though something like that never happened to me. Like, I knew that happens, but it doesn't happen to me. When I was 17 and I was living in, I was in 11th grade in Israel, like many high schoolers do. I went on this trip to Poland to see the ghettos, the concentration camps, and the death camps. And I remember, like, one time we were getting off a bus or onto a bus from one destination to another, and some Polish guy, like, on his bicycle stopped and spit on us. When I moved to the US, when in 2010, 2011, someone who was a few years above me in the PhD program told me that the only reason I was accepted to the program is because my advisor's wife loves Jews. But all of these things felt like very small and insignificant because we were raised on, the effing Holocaust. We were raised on pogroms. We were raised on, like, things that are so extreme. And sometimes when something is so extreme, you forget where the extremity starts. It doesn't think the Holocaust did not start in Auschwitz. It started with an idea, right? And I think that's something that since October 7 has been really, like, something I've been thinking a lot about, right? And I think a lot of our guests, like, the seeds were there, but October 7th, for some of them, it was the 2021 war, really kind of, like, brought the seeds up above ground.
So have you learned anything about yourself?
Yeah. Funny, I was just before the previous interview we did with Montana Tucker, I was sitting on that massage chair, that awesome massage chair that you have, which, by the way,
we're going to link to it.
Yeah, link to it. Maybe we can get someone to actually fund this podcast.
And by the way, I walked upstairs and I saw you deep in washing dishes in our kitchen.
But look,
I couldn't believe it, and I was going to stop you, like, physically.
But why? I mean, I wanted to get coffee. There were no mugs. I was like, I might as well clean, mugs. And I was like, I'm not going to clean just one mug. That would be such a self-interested thing.
We got to get you a Here I Am apron. We'll
Here I Am apron.
We'll speak to Olam Tova.
Yeah. So you found out, you learned that I am, and I told you, like, I don't understand these quote unquote known people, famous people, celebrity, call them what you want, who become above doing some things. Like, I'm not, like, if I have the time and the energy, I'll do whatever. But anyways, I was sitting on that massage chair because the one thing that really hurts since October 7th in my heart is my back. And I was talking with my parents. I try to call my parents at least sometimes once a day, sometimes like once every 2 days. Um, and I was talking about how difficult the last few days have been. And my dad said, I think you've learned since October 7 how that you're much stronger than you thought you were. And I think he was right. I think, and not just me, I think also my wife. We we had to go through a lot very quickly, and because of that, we basically grew very thick skins, and I think that's something I learned a lot about myself. Um, I think I also learned how much I care. I knew that I care, but I didn't know how much I care.
So, on the heels of that, have you thought a little bit about your own Jewish identity and how this whole thing, this whole war, October 7th, you becoming an activist, a leader, that changed how you thought about your own Jewish identity at all?
So the the most honest answer is it has not changed how I think about my Jewish identity, but it's definitely deepened how I think about it. So one thing people need to understand about me is I have always examined my Jewish identity ever since I was a little kid, and partially because I have never believed in God. Like it's not for me. I'm not one of those atheists that, you know, grew up believing in God, then lost faith, and then are now like calling everyone who does believe in God like stupid and trying to convince. Like that's not me. Like you do you. Everyone does their own thing. I just do me, and I never believed in God. So it's like when people ask me how can you not believe in God, I say like in the same way that you can. It's who I am. Um, but so I grew up that, but I also grew up with cousins who were religious. Some of them still are religious. My father's sister married a shasnik, a Persian Jew that that was Orthodox. His siblings are extremely Orthodox in Bnei Brak, Mas Shearim, etc. But he's a little bit more modern Orthodox. So, but my cousins were modern Orthodox, what you would call in the U.S. Um, and my family were not. Then I have other cousins who are somewhat and somewhat not. So we got like the whole spectrum. My grandfather was an atheist. My grandmother is like a believer, and it's like they were married for 50 odd years, right? So it was always like, what does being Jewish mean to me? Like what is it about being Jewish? And I've always struggled with it. And because I'm a nerd, I'm a professor. My way of struggling with something is just reading a lot. So I just read. I just read, you know, um, when my aunts and my aunt and uncle, the religious side, would come from to Shabbat dinner, and they would have like the Parashat Shavua. Like I was just like I'd read it and see like what's the Parashat Shavua and educate myself, and and not agree with a lot of things, and but also find a lot of things that I agree with and very enriching. When it was like about Jewish history, I would pick up and read that, and ever since October 7th, slightly before, for other reasons, but since October 7th, I really delved into reading everything that I can about Jewish history, Jewish thought, Jewish spirituality. So at every single point, like right now, I'm reading a book called Conspiracy U, which is about extreme right-wing anti-Semitism and extreme left-wing anti-Semitism in universities. And I'm also reading a book in Hebrew called Reshit, Beginning, which is it's basically a secular analysis of the Torah. I
That's cool.
Recently read a biography of Maimonides, Rambam, and about Baruch Spinoza, right, who was excommunicated for not believing in God. In Amsterdam, I think it's the 16th or 17th century. Read about. I've always been obsessed with learning more and more about the history of the Holocaust from every angle possible. So I have like just a few months ago finished a book that was written by Hitler's chauffeur, and like this guy was driving him around. What did he know? What did he see? But then, and watching movies about The Ordinary Men, which is a great movie about how do people that basically what is called the silent Holocaust, the 1.5 million people that were murdered for gunshots, not in camps. So like it's always like mixing in my brain and getting all of those things together. Yesterday I was on Zoom in a Tehillim group that I've been meeting since October 7th for the hostages, and I try to come to everything with an open mind of we're all Jews. We might not be the same kind of Jews, but we are all Jews, so let's figure it out.
So what do you think is like the common denominator among all Jews? Like, what is it, that thing that is like uniquely, identifiable? Is it just that we're born Jewish? Is it something that we just kind of like?
So it's not just that you're born Jewish, because we have people that convert to Judaism, and they are some of the best Jews out there.
Mm-hmm.
So it can't just be born. It can't just be a belief, because then people like me who don't believe in God are still very Jewish. To me, it's like a tribe. We are, when you look at tribes like the Maasai tribe in Africa, you look at the tribes in the Amazonas, you see the tribes in Southeast Asia, there's like 50 families, and they all feel very, very close-knit, and they all care deeply about their shared history. They sometimes have the same language that's different from everyone else's. And no one comes and says, why are you like this? Because it's clear, like they are a tribe. They are not better or worse than you. It's just they're different. They're unique. I think we started as a tribe. We started as nomads in the desert. We got bigger and bigger, so we're 16 million people, but we're still a tribe. So we're a people or a nation. And the way I think about it is, most people in the West, in the United States, Canada, Europe, they see the world through two different lenses, right? It's either the individual, which is like, who am I? Like, treat yourself day. Like, what do I like to eat? What do I like to drink? What kind of a person am I? Like, that's the very individualistic. Or they have like the universal, like people as a whole, and like what is universal justice, and what are the things that we believe in and aspire to, and like in different movements. I think Jews have a middle ground as well. We still think about us as in the individual. We still think about the world as a whole, but we also have that in the middle of like the community. That is, it's not all the people in the world, but it's also not just about me. It's like there's something more important than me. I think that's what ties the Jews together. And I actually think that's not unique just to Jews. So I've spoken to Armenian people, and they have the same experience. I've spoken to people from South America and Central America that sometimes have like a very similar, somewhat different, but experience. I think Native Americans at some point, if those that are devoted to their identity as Native Americans have that experience, it doesn't fit in the Western view of like everything is individualistic and the person is the most important unit. And I don't think the person is the most important unit. The community, the tribe is the most important unit. Of course, I want to live as a person, but that's why when there is someone like Hirsch Goldberg Polin, who's murdered in a tunnel in Gaza, and I've never met him, never met his parents, don't know where he went to high school, don't know his story. All I know is that he's 23, he's Jewish, he went to a music festival, kidnapped, kept hostage, and then murdered. And I still feel connected to him. A non-Jew will have a very difficult time understanding that. And by the way, I think that's why you didn't know me. You didn't know what you were getting into, but I posted something. Anyone interested in helping set up a podcast? And
Abby saw it.
Abby saw it, and you guys reached out.
Yeah.
And it's partially because you believe in making the world a better place, but partially I think because we're both Jewish and there's something that's linking us. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't be linking ourselves to non-Jews as well. Like we should, and I am, because like I try to teach my children, like don't be that kind of Jew who thinks they're better than everyone else, right? But also don't let them make you the kind of Jew who thinks they're worse than everyone else. Just remember, you're just different than anyone else. You're as good and as bad as everyone else, but different. And that's, I don't know, isn't that cool?
It is cool.
It's like pretty cool. Like I walk around with this Magen David, and like Jews that I don't know are like, hey, what's up? And it's like we have our own like sign, like secret sign. I mean, it's not that secret, and but yeah.
Funny, I didn't really know who you were when Abby told me. Abby saw your post. I was like, oh, what is he, another Jewish comedian? I have my head in the sand. I'm telling you. But honestly,
no, I love that. What is he, another Jewish comedian? Which is first of all, it's like there's too many, but second is like we're all comedians. It's like
everybody's a comedian. Yeah, even Elon Gold thought you were funny.
That was good. That was fun.
Great.
That was very fun. But
I actually wanted to. I mean, I have so many things that I want to ask you, but like your tattoos but I would like to. I want to like kind of analyze some of the people that you've spoken to already.
Yeah, let's do that.
So I don't know. Is there anything memorable? I mean, by now we've interviewed a significant number of people. Yeah, it's a lot of people. That's 20 plus hours of you talking.
Yeah.
And things going wrong. Nobody sees that.
And 20 plus hours of Ben editing and listening to me and other people talking, and it's like, oh, probably like closes his eyes and hears my voice.
No, but throughout all these conversations, we're like we're in the background, like laughing, crying. I mean, I just yesterday I don't know why I got very emotional with Mayim Bialik. I didn't expect that, but what I've noticed just listening to you talk to everybody's so, down to earth. I don't know. They kind of like when you get them on a one-on-one, they can really just open up. And
I think that when people realize that I really want to listen, then they really want to open up, right? We're so used to having conversations where, that we're gonna go through the moves. You're gonna ask me questions. I'm gonna respond, etc., etc. But then once in a while, you have a conversation with someone who's like, they really want to know about you, and as someone who's been on other people's podcasts quite a lot, like sometimes every once in a while there's a podcast where it's like they really want to know, they really want to understand what it's like living the world in my shoes and through these glasses, and those are the best conversations. I don't know if it makes the best podcast, right? Because sometimes when we open up, it becomes a little bit more rambling and a little bit long. Like our episodes are now more than an hour long, and some people
complain.
It means
there's a lot to talk about.
But I remember from every episode, I like Deborah Messing telling the story about being called a kike in second grade. Like that stuck with me. Michelle Achdut talking about how, a Jewish college student who just wants to go through campus without being harassed is a civil rights issue. Shabbos Kestenbaum.
Rabbi Fursko?
Yeah, no. So Kestenbaum was talking a lot about how about that crazy story with the Columbia
with the
admin was there for 26 years, like
Wild.
holding a machete and like planning to attack him. Rabbi Fresco about the turmoil within the Reform synagogues and like some people are in some families being torn apart. Adela Kochab talking about that vice president of student affairs at NYU who tells her like in February, I'll only have a meeting time for you in May, when she wants to talk about anti-Semitism that was happening right then and there. Abraham Hamra talking about what it's like being a dhimmi, like the second class citizen under Muslim rule in Syria and Lebanon and Iraq and other countries. Who else? Like Ari Ackerman.
Ari Ackerman.
Man, like his story about
His grandfather worked with, or
like he was the first, if maybe one of the first, if not the first, business owner to desegregate his businesses in the South,
right,
before like being told by the government to do so, just because he thought it was the right thing to do. Now, that also was good business for him. I'm not saying like he didn't gain from that, but that's incredible.
So many moments.
Ami Kozak,
Yeah.
right? Ami Kozak was here and he was cracking us up with his impressions. But then he can go from like being an impression about like Douglas Murray or Candace Owens or Jordan Peterson. He goes from that to like this like textbook analysis of something that I actually like. I don't know if people listened or saw that episode. Like you can see me sometimes like trying to catch up because he's way faster in his thought than I am. That was quite the show.
That was a great episode.
That was quite an episode.
Who else was there? What other moments were there?
Cheyenne, what else? Who else? Yeah.
Who else was there?
Oh, yes, Yuval David. Yeah,
Yuval.
Yuval David. Like, that was great because I didn't know what to expect from Yuval because I've seen him. I've never met him, but I've seen him like in his social media. I've seen him like giving speeches. And then when he started, and I think it was the first thing I asked him, what kind of a Jew are you? And and he says like, I am a fucking strong Jew.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is going to be a good conversation. And that was like, you know, and that was really cool because for some people, like he's an unapologetic, very strong Jew. He does extreme sports and he's gay. Like how many more stereotypes can you break at once? So that was really cool.
Actually, today when we had the conversation, you had the conversation with Montana Tucker, and you asked her what her favorite curse was. I think she was a little thrown off, like almost like she's a really nice person, doesn't want to like rock the boat. I thought maybe she thought that you were talking about a curse, like an actual curse,
like a curse
Yeah,
you put on someone.
but
Like what's your? We should add.
she's the only one who hasn't
What's
cursed.
your favorite plague?
Favorite plague? That's actually a good question. It says a lot about you.
Yeah, blood.
Blood. Then we really need to like analyze you.
No, but I think again, but that was actually a great example of like when we talked and asked her, what's your favorite curse? And you could see she doesn't feel comfortable with the question because that's not who she is.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't curse. That's not her way of communicating with the world. Definitely my way. Definitely my father-in-law's way when he's driving. And, you know, there's not way that's better or worse, but I can't force someone to live their life differently, you know?
It'll be really cool as we're talking, Zach Sage comes on.
Yeah.
What's his ETA? Awesome.
So let me ask you.
Yeah.
You've been observing this behind the scenes. What are some lessons that you think like can be taken from all these conversations? Is there any common thing?
I'm always thinking about like, are the cameras on? Is my internet working well?
Yeah, you're too busy with the.
But well, I'm always just so impressed that you can talk for so long and keep your focus. You know, I mean, I don't know how you do it. You're always listening to them, and then you have a guy like Ami Kozak, and you have to really like be on top of your game.
You know, one of the things. So I'll tell you about when the episode started coming out. I was in Israel. I was really, really excited, and I've been telling everyone like this podcast, other than raising my children, is the thing that I've done that I'm most proud of, in my life. And obviously, I couldn't do this alone. But the fact that we were able together to put this out there is I'm just blown away. So I was really excited, and I got home. I was in Israel when we started releasing the episodes, and I was there for 6 weeks. So we saw the first 6 episodes together. Me, then my wife, my mom, and my dad. And every Shabbat, so because we don't keep Shabbat, so every Shabbat after Shabbat dinner, we would sit, and my parents have like a big, large screen TV. All four of us would smoke a joint and watch the episode. And the best compliment that I ever received was my parents telling me after every episode, this is our favorite episode. Right? So Deborah Messing was their favorite episode, and then Michelle Achdut was their favorite episode, then Shabbos Kestenbaum, then Ami Kozak, then Ari Ackerman. I don't remember who came next, but like every time we're like, this is our favorite episode. And what I realized is that each episode is so completely different and you don't know what you're going to get. So each episode speaks to a different part of who we are as a people and who each one of us is as an individual, right? So in some, you're going to cry and you're going to be like, I can't stop crying. And in some, you're going to laugh so hard. And in some, you're going to be like thinking a lot and really analyzing things. Some are more spiritual. Some are more historical. Some talk more or almost exclusively about Israel. Others, we haven't talked at all about Israel, right? So that is what I like about the show so far and what I hope we can keep going. Like even today, we recorded 3 episodes already today. We recorded a Liat Korin, whose cousin is a hostage in Gaza. And that was probably the most difficult one for me to have recorded. Then we recorded Julia Silverstein and Tammy Schlossberger, who wrote Chutzpah Girls, this amazing, empowering book. Then Montana Tucker, and now we're going to record Zach Sage Fox, and it's like we're all different.
Bring them in.
So I don't know. That's really cool that we're able to do all that.
No, not yet. I want Sage to come in.
We gotta switch up media though. Oh yeah.
Oh, okay, got it.
All right, now we have some B-roll because a lot of people are like, "What's making this podcast like?"